impacted in what we see.
What impact does the city budget have on quality of life issues in Philadelphia? I'm Jill Horner. This is Comcast Local Edition. With me is Philadelphia Councilman at Large Bill Green. Thanks so much for being with us, Councilman.
Thank you very much for having me, Jill.
Let's talk a little bit about the overall economic situation that we're facing right now in the city. How did we get to this point where we are seeing such a fiscal crunch?
Well, in part, it's a lot related to the national economy. This crisis was coming no matter what we did in the city. We did, however, exacerbate it. In the first year that I was in council of the Nutter administration, we increased spending 2% across the board over the previous year in the face of a recession. And then we took a long time after we saw the tea leaves to actually make our decisions. About 6 or 9 months later than we should have, we started making cuts. And as a consequence, you know, we ended up having to dig ourselves out of a deeper hole than we'd otherwise be in. But I think everybody's done a tremendous job and worked together, and we're moving forward.
Let's talk about that moving forward process. Federal stimulus money doesn't necessarily play a role in your budget process because it can't help to plug things like budget gaps. So talk to us a little bit about some of the ways in which you're working to raise revenue and potentially attract new businesses that will lead to more ratables in the city.
Well, you know, unfortunately, you know, we can't get out of this problem just by making cuts. And the cuts that we're making are really at the street level. We're cutting pools, we're cutting libraries. I really think that there's a lot of savings we need to focus on within the bureaucracy.
So have structural savings.
Structural changes that have to happen in city government. We have 6,000 supervisors in the city when we have about 16,000 to 18,000 city employees, non-county employees. When we had 30,000 employees, we only had 6,000 supervisors. And what that really means is our bureaucracy is way too big at the top and in the middle. We need to just focus on street-level services, implement some technology that eliminates paper, and we can save $100 to $200 million that way, rather than having to raise taxes. And that's the kind of thing I'm working on.
Anytime you have a position like this where you're faced with a fiscal crunch, but yet you have people who may have worked for the city for a long time in a supervisory role, it's a challenge and it's difficult to move that kind of agenda forward. What are some of the areas that you're looking at this point in terms of making cuts? Because you're talking about potentially people's employment.
Well, Mayor Street used to call the bureaucracy the be here. They're here when you get there and they'll be here when you're gone. So it's hard to affect change within the civil service system and with the unions, et cetera. But really, I think we have to work with our unions, and I think we can make the changes, the structural changes we need over a 7 or 8 year period through the end of the Nutter administration, and then just promise that there won't be layoffs. We will get our efficiencies through attrition as we put different systems and workflow processes in place to make ourselves a modern city government. I mean, we have strategically underinvested in technology for 30 years, so we have a real opportunity to leapfrog every other city in the country, become the first truly paperless government in America, and I think that's where we ought to go.
In addition to these kinds of changes structurally that you're talking about, proposals were put forward to generate revenue for the city, including increase in property tax, increase in the sales tax. Where do we stand at this point?
Well, the administration proposed a 19% property tax increase. My office did some research, and we determined that that would result immediately in 12% lower property values in the city, based on a study done by Professor Robert Inman at Penn. And we decided to try to reach a different result. What the mayor proposed was 3-year sales tax increase. We eliminated the property tax on council and then extended the sales tax to 5 years. And so hopefully that will do the least damage to the local economy.
We just have a minute left, but when we talk about a city budget, it obviously has a direct impact on people's lives. You mentioned things like pools, things like libraries. What are some of the challenges as we move forward into the next budget cycle, things that may potentially be cut?
Well, there's the potential to cut a health center if we don't get the state budget passed and other things. But fundamentally, we can't keep nibbling around the edges. We have to have transformative change in city government. And we're not going to fix this city. We may slow decline until we fix our educational system. That's the most important thing we can do for Philadelphians.
Please come back and give us an update and let us know how things are progressing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We've been talking with Philadelphia City Councilman at Large, Bill Green. I'm Jill Horner for Comcast Local Edition.